Michael Damian, the devoted caretaker of this towering building in Johannesburg, South Africa, went to the second floor, determined to fetch a bucket and other essential supplies to wash his car. As he shuffled through the dimly lit corridor, a terrible odor invaded his nostrils. Intensifying with each step, a dreadful intuition nagged at him, urging him to investigate the room in which the smell was coming from. He pushed open the creaking door and was confronted by a horrific sight. A decomposing body laid before him. Overwhelmed and in disbelief, Michael hurried downstairs, his footsteps echoing in the empty halls, to alert the security guard on duty. Together, they confirmed the grim reality that it was a decaying body of a woman. The security guard then reached out to one of the tenants of this building, Mark Kumalo, who ran a panel beating business on the same premises. With a heavy heart, he relayed their troubling findings to Mark. As Mark arrived, his troubled gaze met with the guard, who told him of his son Sifiso Mkwananzi's secret dealings with ladies of the night, frequenting Saturdays and Sundays, sleeping in and out unnoticed. The three desperate men, filled with worry and fear, came up with a plan to lure Sifiso Mkwananzi. Under the disguise of needing keys for the workshop, they reached out to Sifiso. The unsuspecting Sifiso agreed to meet them. As they approached him, a sense of impending doom washed over him. Attempting to flee, he was swiftly apprehended. When his father asked why he was running, he said, "I left something and I was rushing back to get it." His lies feeble and unconvincing. His father's disappointment hung heavy in the air, as Sifiso's attempt to escape painted a very bad picture, confirming the worst. As they slowly made their way back to the complex, Sifiso sat silently in the back seat. Upon confronting him with their discoveries, Sifiso strongly rejected any association with the events of the previous Sunday, which was the 2nd of October. With heavy hearts, they dialed the authorities. As the police came, they watched the grainy, bleak CCTV footage of the complex, and then an undeniable truth emerged. The footage captures Sifiso's presence at the workshop, returning to the workshop in the company of an unidentified woman. The chilling footage revealed the two individuals cautiously entering the office. Moments later, Sifiso emerged from the premises. However, the mysterious woman was never seen departing either alone or with him. Confronted with this incriminating evidence, Sifiso denied his presence in the CCTV footage. However, the authorities then proceeded to retrieve the remains of the unidentified woman. As the remains were carried out, another caretaker, accompanied by an unidentified man, diligently sprayed down the room, scrubbing away the lingering odor of death. The water flowing towards a workshop drainage, only to suddenly halt in its path. The men went to investigate what was blocking the floor, and looking closer, the caretaker faced another grim discovery: a second body. The chilling Sunday grew heavier when the police thorough search of the building unveiled four additional lifeless bodies in varying stages of decay, increasing the body count to 6 victims, a second in the drainage, and the rest strategically abandoned in parked cars or bagged in bin bags. Amidst this sorrowful scene, the authorities detained 19-year-old Sifiso, leaving an atmosphere of sadness and unanswered questions. To take you back, this wasn't the first time he had been apprehended by the police. In 2021, this 19-year-old boy had been arrested for forcing himself on yet another sex worker who reported him. To his defense, he claimed that after their transaction, the sex worker increased their charges unfairly, judging him by his car and business. One might imagine he had deceived these women about the cars and the business ownership. So, Sifiso couldn't meet the demand for the additional sum. Reluctantly, they parted ways, only for the lady to reappear after 48 hours, accompanied by the law enforcement. She accused him of forcing himself on her, leading to his arrest and incarceration for 10 months. Eventually, the case was withdrawn and charges were dismissed. Yet the damaging impact of his life couldn't be erased. The shattered trust, the lost time, and the emotional scars that plagued him for long after his release. According to him, this was the incident that forever tainted his perception of sex workers. A tragic encounter that resulted to his arrest in June 2021 and his eventual release in April 2022. It was in that same fateful year that his heart birthed a sequence of heinous acts that stained his soul with irreparable darkness. Sifiso, burdened by the memory of his past incarceration after a similar ordeal, found himself in a vicious cycle Overwhelmed by the fear of returning to jail, he resorted to an evil, chilling solution, silencing these women forever. The weight of his actions reflecting the darkness within him. He would take the lives of these women and tie ropes around them to make them easy to drag to his desired hiding spots and continue with his life as if nothing had happened. In his twisted method of silencing these defenseless women, he resorted to the chilling act of choking them, a diabolical display of power and brutality. However, among the tragic remains discovered, one woman bore the mark of a bullet, unveiling that he once thought of using this method, only to dismiss it due to the risk of being exposed by the loud sound of gunfire. In a sad confession, he recounted how these women had dared to demand more money, sparking a fatal confrontation that ended with him taking their lives. Adding to this heart-wrenching tale, the victim found by Damien and the security guard carried an even heavier weight of tragedy. She was pregnant. During the investigations, other sex workers courageously stepped forward. Among them, a vulnerable soul recounted a haunting encounter with Siviso. She described being led to the workshop only to be abruptly dismissed as she was removing her clothes. The reason behind the early dismissal is that Sifiso saw some marks on her skin and he feared for his health, deeming her unfit for intimacy, but he paid her anyway. During his trial, Makumalo, Sifiso's father, courageously took the stand and testified against his own flesh and blood, emphasizing the gravity of the heinous crimes committed by his son. His only plea was for the justice to be served. Finally, on the 18th of September 2024, the youngest documented serial killer in South Africa, Sifiso, was convicted and sentenced to life in prison for brutally silencing 6 innocent sex workers between April and October 2022. As the tragic chapter closes, 3 victims' identities remain a haunting mystery, leaving a lingering sense of sorrow and loss in the air. The sex workers which were targeted by Sifiso were mainly foreigners from the neighboring country Zimbabwe. People he knew had a few relatives in South Africa, which meant some were never reported missing. As we come to the end of this case, may the victims' families be comforted and may their souls rest in peace.